cloud. So this is the fastest I've ever fixed it. So I'm proud of that. All right. Dharma talk. The womb, the sword women, and the Dharma. And if you add it all up, it's the whole human path. I'm going to start you out with a poem by Maya Angelou called Phenomenal Women. It's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenal woman. That's me. So again, thank you for being here on this fine summer evening. There's probably 50 other things you could do instead. And I'm really happy to give the Dharma talk today and next week. Scott, can you hear me? You're giving me gestures again. Okay. So I've been loving the theme of the year 2025. And I also enjoy how it mutated from ancestors, which are, in our tradition are pretty much male, to female ancestors. And all this energy came up around the subject of female ancestors. We've been hearing terrific stories about strong practitioners and how they persevered and were upright when their life was so hard. So tonight, I will tell a different story. It's actually the same story, but it will sound very different. It brings up other aspects and angles of female practice. Some of it may upset some of you, but I'm asking you to please bear with me. So I'm going to start out with the historical role of women and the body. And probably everybody here knows everything I'm going to say, but I think it needs to be said. Throughout history, the roles women have occupied in society have often been shaped, if not defined, by the biological reality of childbearing. Pregnancy, childbirth, and nursing are powerful forces of nature. They are miraculous, beautiful, and also demanding and wearing one down to the bone. In early human societies, this biological capacity linked women closely with the rhythms of life and survival, the continuation of family lines, the raising of children, the tending of the hearth. Because only women bear children, society assigned them roles that revolved around family, caregiving, and domestic labor. These functions were and are crucial. They are not lesser. Yet they are often treated as less visible, less honored, socially limiting, and less empowering within the larger structure of religion, politics, and economics. In Buddhist society, this has also been the case. the Buddha's time was no different. Even though the Buddha himself did ordain women after some prodding from Ananda, and we should acknowledge that this was radically egalitarian at the time. Those early bhikkhunis, or bhikshuni, which is a word for nun, they still entered a world steeped in patriarchy. And so alongside their ordination came the heavy rules, which placed all nuns in positions subordinate to monks. The nun who had practiced longest had to give way to the grasshopper who just ordained. Those early nuns had to push against deeply ingrained patriarchal norms. This has never been a reflection of women's potential for awakening, but of the cultural norms the Sangha had to navigate to survive. The Buddha never said that only men could awaken, or that the Dharma was based on gender. In fact, his foster mother and aunt, Mahapajapati Gautami, became the first fully ordained nun. She was a master of the way in her own right. After walking many miles with 500 women, shaven-headed, barefoot, she persisted in asking the Buddha to admit women into the monastic order. Her determination laid the foundation for generations of female practitioners. Whether you have children or not, whether you're a man or a woman, path of wisdom, compassion, and liberation is always the same. So one thing I would like to do is explore the historical roles of women, particularly the tension between different aspects that we all carry within us, and how these relate to the Dharma. What does it mean to walk the path when your life has been shaped by childbearing, caretaking, child rearing, and resistance against your role? What do we mean when we chant the Bodhisattva vows? Beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Buddha's ways unsurpassable, I vow to become it. So what does Buddhism have to say about all this? You may have noticed that so far I have described women's roles in terms inoffensive and beloved by many. Now we come to the less lovable part, which I titled Warrior Women and the Sword. Not all women will accept the roles assigned to them. History gives us powerful examples of women who led, fought, and ruled with courage. And those are only the ones we know of. As we found out in our studies, sometimes women's accomplishments get diminished. Women get written out of history, or whatever good they did the credit is given to men. This is still happening today in scientific papers, that men usually get more credit than women do. And now I'll get off my soapbox. But I want to introduce you to some of the women who did not accept their roles. This is not exactly Dharma literature. It's called Amazons, and it's an anthology, high adventure and heroic fantasy. Amazons. And it was edited by Jessica Amanda Salmonson. And she also was instrumental in this book, the Encyclopedia of Amazons, Women Warriors from Antiquity to the Modern Era. It's a fun read. I mostly leaned on the foreword because that was it was historical. It listed different female warriors and rulers and pirates. And I double and triple checked that I didn't fall for this. Sounds so good. It has to be true. And there was Artemisia of Caria, 480 BC. She was the queen of the ancient Greek city-state of Halicarnassus, which is now in Bodrum, present-day Turkey. She was also the queen of the nearby islands, of course, Nisyros and Kalymnos. She was of Carian Greek ethnicity. Her father before her was king. And she was an ally of Xerxes the First. I don't know how you pronounce it in English. That's how you say it in German. Sorry. But he was the king of Persia. And they were in a war against the independent Greek city-states during the second Persian invasion of Greece. And she personally commanded the ships at the naval battle of Artemisium and the naval battle of Salamis in 480 BC. Roman historians praised her courage and related the respect in which she was held by the Persian Emperor Xerxes. Boudica, queen, lived in first century Britain. After the Romans publicly flogged her and raped her daughters, she led a massive revolt against Roman occupation, burning Londinium, today's London, and several other Roman towns. Her army of tribal Britons shook the Roman Empire. They did lose in the end. Then there were Trung Truc and Trung Ni, two Vietnamese sisters. They led a successful rebellion in 40 CE against Chinese domination. They were daughters of a powerful military family, and they raised an army of over 80,000 and reclaimed their homeland. They ruled for several years before they were overthrown. Rather than be captured, they chose to drown themselves in a river. Now, my personal favorite, Tomoe Gosen, 12th century, was a Onamusha, a female samurai. And she is mentioned in the tale of Heike. There is some doubt in some quarters whether she existed, since she does not appear in the primary account of the Genpei War. She served under samurai lord Minamoto no Yoshinaka during the Battle of Awasu, part of the Genpei War, and in the late Heian period, which led to the establishment of the Kamakura shogunate. Yoshinaka, who was Tomo Gosen's lord, fought Yoritomo's forces. Tomo Gosen became known for beheading Honda no Morishige of Musashi. Although Yoshinaka's troops fought bravely, they were outnumbered and overwhelmed. When Yoshinaka was defeated and prepared for seppuku, ritual suicide, with the few soldiers left standing, he ordered his general, and she was also apparently his concubine, Tomo Gosen, to flee. He wanted to die with his foster brother and not some woman, and he wanted her to take care of his grave. So the story goes. There are varied accounts of what happened next, but they seem to agree that Tomo Gosen jumped on a horse, rode into the enemy camp, and killed the general and escaped with his head. Are you tired of this yet? I have a couple more. Grace O'Malley was a 16th century Irish pirate queen who commanded the fleet, conducted sea raids, and negotiated with Queen Elizabeth I as an equal. She was fluent in politics, strategy, and sea warfare, all while managing estates and raising children. In 1565, her husband Donald was killed in an ambush while hunting in the hills. His assassination was undoubtedly part of a wider struggle against an enemy clan for the control of Hens Castle. When the Choices, the opposing party, moved to take the castle, thinking that Grace would not resist, she fought back successfully and forced Clan Choice to retreat. Grace O'Malley then returned to her own lands and established her principal residence on Clare Island. She allegedly took a shipwrecked sailor as her lover. The affair lasted only briefly as he was killed by Clan MacMahon of Ballyvoy. Seeking vengeance, O'Malley attacked Clan MacMahon's stronghold and slew her lover's murderers upon Caher Island. Then there was Zheng Yi Sao, also known as Shi Yang. She lived from 1775 to 1844. She was a Chinese pirate leader, active in the South China Sea from 801 till 810. She married into the business. She married the pirate Zheng Yi. And she became known as the wife of Zheng Yi Sao. After the death of her husband in 1807, she took control of the Pirate Confederation, supported by Zheng Yi's adopted son, Zhang Bao, with whom she later entered into a relationship and she married him too. So she was the unofficial commander of the Guangdong Pirate Confederation. Her fleet was about 400 junks and about 40,000 to 60,000 pirates. Her ships entered into conflicts with several major powers, such as the East India Company, the Portuguese Empire, and the Great Qing. Surprisingly, she pulled it off to negotiate her way into a peaceful retirement. It was a negotiation from a position of strength. Then there was Lozan, an Apache warrior and seer in the late 1800s. She wrote beside her brother Victorio. She was the strategist and prophet who used her spiritual gifts to track enemies. She was known both on the battlefield and for her deep spiritual insight. And she continued to fight long after others had surrendered. Last not least, Nakano Takiko, 19th century Japanese samurai. She led an all-female unit during the Boshin War. She died age 21, along with her whole group. When they discovered that the opposing army was kind of reluctant to shoot at them, they used that for frontal assault, during which they all died. Many of the women who fought in her group were noble women. And they did this without permission, since the senior Aizu retainers did not allow them to fight as an official part of the army. Her bravery is honored in Japan to this day. So these are little stories. And just like koans, they are our ancestors too. These were real people living lives of courage. Their power wasn't metaphor, it was real, embodied, and defiant. As Zen practitioners, we do not glorify violence, but we can honor the spirit that cuts through oppression and limitations. Sometimes compassion roars. So now, how do we turn this into a Dharma talk instead of a bunch of bloodthirsty women? Was it fair what happened? How do we meet these realities without clinging to them or rejecting them? How do we see them clearly without aversion, without illusion? Let's look back to the biological facts. To carry life in one's womb is not a small thing. The body changes, the mind transforms, the heart expands. And after work, the real work, after birth, the real work begins. Again, many ancient cultures basically placed women squarely within the domain of family life and nothing else. And here's a paradox. While this role was often devalued in public life and continues to be devalued in public life, it is also held sacred. The mother symbol has been revered and simultaneously overlooked. This tension of being honored in name but constrained in life is a wound that many women carry. So in the light of the Dharma, how can we look at this? The Buddha, of course, taught us that there is no self. When we chanted the Heart Sutra earlier today, we say, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no self. No. This body, male or female, is not the essence of who we are. We don't have bodies, we are bodies. And the body is a vehicle for us to practice. The Dharma does not concern itself with status, but with suffering and the end of suffering. Whether we have given birth to a child or not, we are all called to give birth to wisdom, to compassion, and to liberation. The biological role of women have shaped their lives outwardly, but it need not define their spiritual potential. In fact, one could say that the very experiences of pregnancy, labor, and motherhood, the endless giving, letting go of control, the endurance, are profound teachers of the Dharma. There is a reason there are many great female teachers, both monastic and lay, who speak of motherhood as a ground of practice. Full disclosure, I have no kids. In the Pali Canon, there's a beautiful moment when the Buddha praises his aunt and foster mother, Mahapajapati Gotami. She was the first woman to request ordination, and she did not do that lightly. She was persistent, and yet she persisted. She walked hundreds of miles on foot to plead her case. She had raised the Buddha after his mother's death, but she didn't say, I raised you, you owe me. She just stood dusty, bloody. But now she wanted to support the Dharma and fully realize it for herself. That is true spiritual courage. So we have to be honest and say that biology is shaping our lives. It's one of the factors we deal with at work, in the family, in practice. But culture has also shaped us, and so has karma, the deep web of causes and conditions that shape each life. The Buddhist path does not deny biology, but it refuses to let biology be destiny. We live in interesting time, a true pivot point. Engineering, machines, white collar work. Women's roles in the workplace have changed. Again, I ask, how do we meet these realities without clinging to them or rejecting them? How do we see them clearly without aversion and without illusion? Then I have a small section here. Dharma without apology. History is vast, and the human spirit is not easily categorized. There have been ups and downs for women in general, and there will be more ups and downs in the future. But maybe you, if you're a woman, you can find a little bit of solace in those stories that I told you about generals and pirates and queens. Let me read them again to you. Queen Boudica, who led an uprising against the Roman Empire. Trung Truc and Trung Ni, Vietnamese sisters who raised an army to overthrow Chinese occupation. Grace O'Malley, the Irish pirate queen, who ruled the seas as fiercely as any admiral. Lozan, the Apache warrior and prophetess, who fought beside her brother Victorio. You'll find women generals and pirates in China, queens in Dahomey, samurai women in Japan, and warrior leaders from across the steppes of Central Asia. Women who led, fought, and died, not in defense of the family hearth, but for their people, their freedom, and their ideals. And I bring this into the Dharma talk because the Dharma does not ask us to erase our personality. It doesn't ask us to erase our history. It asks us to understand it clearly and compassionately. And these women, whether or not they knew the Buddha's teachings, lived with fierce intention. They refused to be reduced to the narrow roles allotted to them by custom or expectation. And this too is a kind of awakening. The Buddha taught that we all possess the lion's roar, the fearless voice of Dharma that proclaims the truth without apology. When we chant the names of bodhisattvas or woman warriors, we are not glorifying violence, we are honoring courage. We are remembering that the human spirit, especially when lit by wisdom or driven by compassion, can overturn even the most rigid hierarchies. Think about Mahapajapati Gautami. Don't just see the gentle maternal figure who raised Siddhartha. She too was a warrior. She walked all these miles. She braved storms. She walked on dusty road with bloody feet. She probably endured hunger. She stood before the Buddha, not once, but twice, demanding entry into the Sangha for women. She did not wield a sword, but her act was revolutionary. She challenged the norm. She risked rebuke. She carried the resolve of a queen and the patience of a nun and the strength of the commanding officer. And that's the point. Not all warriors wear armor. Not all revolutionaries lead armies. Some raise children, some raise questions. Some of them have boobs and a vagina, some don't. Some raise the Dharma banner in a way that is not welcome. Some speak in a world that prefers their silence. The Dharma teaches us that form is empty and emptiness is form. That means no self-identity is fixed, not social status, not gender, not what we think is safe and secure. Every moment is a turning point. Every breath is a new possibility. So we honor these fierce women of history, not because we want to become pirates or warlords, but because they remind us the human spirit, the bodhisattva spirit, is not meek. The Buddha taught us that we all possess what is called the lion's roar, the fearless voice of Dharma that proclaims the truth without apology. Modern life allows women to take on diverse roles. A mother can also be a judge. A nun may also be a trauma survivor. A Zen teacher may be a mason, a gardener, a psychologist. The path is wide enough for all of us. So let us bow to the mothers, to the rebels, to the nuns, to the lion-hearted, to the one sitting on your seat right now. I would like to end with a poem. It's the name of the poem is The Invitation, and it's by Oriya Mountain Dreamer. It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dream, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals, or have become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine and your own, without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own. If you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes without cautioning us to be careful, to be realistic, to remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you're telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself. If you can hear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. If you can be faithless and therefore trustworthy. I want to know if you can see beauty, even when it is not pretty every day. And if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand at the edge of the lake and shout to the silver of the full moon, yes. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself. And if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. Thank you very much for listening to my talk. We have a few minutes, and I'm wondering if anybody has any comments.
One of my favorite racial knowledge stories. Currently, they don't really know how many husbands Grace had, and she had many lovers as well as husbands. But one of her husbands was a noble who had a castle which she sort of coveted. And she married him under the Irish law, not the British law. And under Irish law, women had much more, uh, many more rights and much more power in the marriage. There were 5 types of marriage, in fact, and they could agree differently. Once she agreed with this fellow and said that she was unhappy in the marriage at the end of the year, all she had to do was throw his clothes out of the window and they would be divorced. And she would then own whatever residence she was in. So she had coveted this one castle because it was a tower that was had military value. So the day she divorced him, she made sure she was occupying that tower, threw his clothes out the window, and acquired another castle.
Ah, by the way, if this whole subject interested you, go into Wikipedia and put in women in ancient warfare. It's mind-boggling, kind of fun too. I strayed way too far away from my talk and had to hold myself back all the time. Any more comments?
That was absolutely one of my favorite Dharma talks. I know that you were kind of advocates about it, but it was amazing. So thank you. I liked your ending poem as well.
Yeah. It kind of Oriah Mountain Dreamer. It's the one poem of her that I like. And it's called The Invitation. So do you feel any conflict around this subject of Dharma and the juxtaposition to all the violence? Because I bet you those ladies that I mentioned in here, they were not nice people. I mean, they kicked some serious butt and they were a product of their society. So it's not like it's in the movies that there's like this, that they're all doing it out of any noble motivation. It was their life. Damon, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just to echo your.
Wait a second. Let me make that louder so other people can hear you too. 1 second, please.
Okay.
Okay.
I was echoing your sentiment that yes, let's celebrate women who resisted, but let's remember now the deeper feminine, the one who resists through stillness, wisdom, without collapsing into violence. And that, for me, that means the deeper feminine within me as well. My feminine energy. I want to better balance that with my overdominant male energy that I've been conditioned to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, that's totally the point. It's peace is the goal we're striving for. And I'm sure that several of these women didn't have a choice, which makes it kind of difficult.
Yeah.
I guess I encountered the idea in like certain uh, political like activist philosophies that pacifism is depending on a state or a larger body of power to enforce your ideas for you, um, which has its own violent connotations. So it can be hard, like with that in mind, I'm sometimes conflicted by the balance between justice and nonviolence because I don't think like, and I think that to some extent the way that your talk framed the contrast between the historical positions of women and the outlier stories that are told, like did seem to be I guess that seemed to be like kind of a direct relationship, like that the not just by subverting expectations of violence, but by being violent in and of itself, like that was a push like against the domination that was being foisted upon. And I don't really have questions.
There's a good argument for peace, for non-violence. Gandhi, he was pretty successful with it. So it is possible, but it takes probably superhuman effort
And numbers.
and numbers. But it's possible. And I probably should not say this. In fact, I'm quite sure I shouldn't say this, but violence is intoxicating in its own way. This going off on anger, it's a stimulation that it fires up all the brain cells and so on, and it just makes this slip into violence easier than it should be.
When I think about history and violence, uh, I think as Buddhists, we don't get to judge other people.
True.
We don't get to say, because we sit on a pillow, we're better humans or better whatever, than someone else who lives a different karma. So, I think it's perfectly reasonable to recognize the greatness in people, even if they were violent people. But the choice we make is, in many ways, a personal choice. We do it thinking that that this is to save all beings. But I still don't see myself as being better than any of those women you spoke about today.
And Dave has the last word. So let's close our Dharma talk. May our intentions equally extend to every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless. Also, some frustrations.
Wow.
Hello.
John.
John.
Joe.
Jill. Mari.
Hi. Jeff.
Yeah. And Chris. Since we have lots of Chris's, I often look like Kanho, which is my Dharma name, so. For my boss. Hey, you also, Chris. And if everybody wants to have a stick up, that would be actually really cool. You know. You put them up. Really, it's not first,
Did I?